Hi, my name is Matthew Vitorino, and this is kind of like a video documentary slash, I guess, tutorial on how I built my arcade machine. So, I've been building this arcade machine for a while now. I prototyped it in late 2019, or I designed it in CAD in late 2019 in my class, and I got the parts printed out, I think, January or February? Probably closer to February. But then coronavirus hit, and I was unable to complete the arcade machine, or even get my hands on it, until about May, I believe. And then from May to about like late July, August, I was working on finishing it, and I managed to finish it. And I'm very happy with the final product, as you saw in the beginning. It plays anything I wanted to. It has a Raspberry Pi inside, and it has the ability to be plugged into a PC or any other device and play games from there. So before coronavirus hit, I was able to attach the side panels, the back, bottom, and top area with the front of the marquee. And the things I really have to do is I need to attach the speakers to the bottom of the marquee, put the marquee actually in, mount the front panel, figure out how I'm going to mount the TV to the front panel, and finish off the control panel. And then some functional things like the wiring, the Raspberry Pi inside, and the buttons, and then some cosmetic things like the paint on the outside, and the marquee and the overlay. So at this point, I'm measuring some of the dimensions that I had on my computer from the CAD file, but I do not have access to the CAD file anymore. So I had to make sure that the width of the acrylic that I was cutting for the back of the marquee fit in place as close as I could get it. And after the measurement, I was able to mark off the areas on the acrylic that I had to cut, and I cut it. At this point in the build, I'm testing out some of the LEDs I got. I got specifically white LEDs, so they would be like a pure white instead of like a slightly tinged color. I would prefer that. And then, as you can see on the left side, I already printed out the acrylic that goes on the control board. You could probably do it by hand, but my school has a CNC machine, so I printed on a CNC machine, and it was a lot easier than I think hand would be. And I was able to get the precise measurements I wanted. I'm going to have a piece of paper under the acrylic that's the NEO-GEO white lines and red background, and I really enjoy how it looked at the end. And it was a pretty simple way to make it look a lot more professional. At this point, I am sizing out the type of hole I need to have on the front panel so I can route the wires for the LEDs and the speakers. It doesn't have to be that big, and if it is that big, it would probably leak more light than I would like. So I had made sure to make it as small as possible while making it as easy to route the cables through. I apologize for my poor cutting in the previous clip. It was just because I didn't have a traditional workbench and I had to work with a collapsible table, so it wasn't the easiest thing to do. But at this point, I'm removing a wood block that I put in when I first assembled it. It was interfering with the front panel, so I just had to remove it. It wasn't really helping with anything. I think it was a misfire when we pressed it in, so it wasn't connected to the top, but it was only connected to the side panel. So I just removed that, and then I was ready to move on. At this point, I had mounted the speakers to the bottom of the marquee. I already had soldered the speaker wire to the speakers before, during class, before the coronavirus happened, but I got them attached, and I just attached them to the bottom of the marquee, and it worked out well. At this point, I'm trying to mount the bottom of the marquee into the arcade machine. I'm using the NEO-GEO logo, so I know exactly like how it's gonna go in, make sure there's no problems with the NEO-GEO logo, and yeah, there was no real problems. I secured the NEO-GEO logo in with some tape, and then as soon as I had the clamps in on the bottom of the marquee, it worked out pretty well. I'm hitting the back under marquee area with a hammer and nails. I'm drilling some pilot holes with a electric drill, and I'm hitting nails into little blocks just for extra stability, making sure that there's no structural problems with it. The blocks act to give it some more rigidity, so I'm just not fully relying on wood glue, because that would not be very robust as a solution. So these nails, even though they don't do much, they do help a decent amount. And here's how it looks so far. Here I was super gluing the back of the acrylic to the wood to act kind of like a sandwich in between the piece of paper that has the NEO-GEO logo and all that stuff on it. It worked surprisingly well. There was not real need for anything more robust than that, because it was just a piece of paper it was holding, and the super glue held the acrylic on very well. At this point I was measuring out where on the front panel the monitor would lay, so I could try to build 2 brackets on either corner to hold the monitor up, and then I was thinking of having a top bracket on top to ensure that it stays in place with maybe a screw or something of the sort. So I was just marking it off with the Sharpie and then flipping it over and making sure everything looks correct. So after cutting some pieces of wood to size, I wanted to make sure that the wood would fit, like there was enough space for the wood sideways to fit onto the TV, and there would be enough leeway to actually fit in or to have the bracket touch the TV and ensure it didn't lean over too far. So at this point I was cutting the wood piece to be half as tall as it was, so it could physically touch the TV and make sure it was doing its job as a bracket. But at this point it really showed me I needed an actual workbench to work, because shortly you'll see that the table actually collapsed, or one of the legs collapsed in the middle of it, and I had to hold it up for a while. So definitely have your own like workbench or an actual table if you do anything like this. At this point, it was finally time to attach the bracket on, so I took some Gorilla Glue, sprayed down with some water the part I was gonna glue on, and the front panel. Made sure to put enough on there, and I clamped them down, and it held up surprisingly well. It fully handled the TV. I've had the arcade machine finished for a couple days now, and I've run into no problems. The TV's been on the bracket for the entire time. There's been no movement, no problems. It's all been very, very good. Here are the finished brackets. They hold the TV well. I actually didn't even need a top portion to keep the top in place. I kind of do, but it's not as necessary as I believed. But those two hold it very well. I decided on holding this part in with Velcro, which was a very bad idea. It doesn't really do as much as I hoped, but it still works. So I was marking it off where I would need to have the Velcro in and what size of a Velcro patch I would need. And here's how the final product turned out. I have the Velcro on the top and some foam I found, like foam inserts, so it directly touches the TV. Here's a clip of me cutting off some blocks of wood to hammer the nails into, just to add some more rigidity to all the parts of the arcade machine. So I didn't have to fully rely on the wood glue, because that would be a poor way long term. But so far, the mixture of the wood glue and the nails that I've been putting into the blocks have been working as well as I want, and I'm really happy with the rigidity, and I was able to just patch it up with some wood putty. I lost the footage for me putting on the wood putty, me sanding everything, and me priming everything. But after I did about 2 coats of primer and 2 coats of top coat, and it worked very well. I had the wood putty. I made sure to sand down the wood putty as well as I could, and then made sure I had an even coat of both. And I have some footage of me painting, but not all of it. But if I were to do it again, I would definitely go with a vinyl wrap, because it looks much better, and it's a lot easier to not get wrong. Here's basically how the backlight for the marquee is going to work. On the front panel, there's a line of LEDs that are connected to the power supply that I can control with a little, a couple buttons inside of the actual arcade machine. And I have the LEDs laid out like that just to make sure each part of the marquee gets lit up equally and there's no dark spots. And it worked out very well. There are no dark spots in the final product. Here I'm using the control panel as a kind of guide to make sure that the front panel is correctly positioned so the control panel has the right angling that I want. I'm drilling some pilot holes with the electric drill, and then I'm taking nails and I'm hammering them into the wood blocks I made. It's very sturdy. I have no complaints. It's holding up the weight of the monitor and the weight of the front panel very, very well. As you can see, it's holding its weight without the clips now, or clamps now, and there's still some excess glue on the outside. I need to just sand that down and it should be okay. I need to hammer in those nails a little bit more so I can wood putty them. Here's the amplifier I have, the speakers, and there's it put into place. At this point, like I said, sadly I'd lost some footage. I lost the footage of me painting the black areas and then priming the entire arcade machine. I also built the back door because I did not have that from school, so I remade it with some wood and sanded it down into place, and it works pretty well. I drilled a couple holes because I didn't have a big enough drill bit to fit the cam lock that I'm planning to use for like the door opening mechanism, but that came out pretty good. The roller was definitely the way to go, but I used paintbrushes on the corners of the arcade machine, and if you do end up painting, I highly suggest using a sponge because it doesn't have those lines that you get with the paintbrush. I mean, it still looks good, I just would have really preferred it without those lines. And you definitely need to have two coats of the top coat. As you can see, there's some white poking out of the red areas, the red, and really with the second coat it just completely popped the way I wanted it to. Here's it after that first coat of paint. Here's that last coat of paint. I was feeling good because this is around the home stretch time. I tried to get as even of a coat as I could. As you can see, I did the best I could. The best areas for me was the red areas because I was able to use the roller a lot more. The black was a lot harder, but I believe I did a good enough job. But definitely look into vinyl wraps. They're not much more expensive than painting it, but they really give it that premium look, and just I personally believe it is worth it. And after the painting was done, I just had to take off the masking tape and begin work on the T-molding. T-molding is another thing I highly, highly recommend. It just completely transformed the sides, because as you can see they're wood right now, and just with the T-molding it gives it such a more premium look and feel. It's more comfortable on your arms if you have to touch the T-molding or the corners of the wood if you have larger hands or larger arms. I am very happy with my decision to use T-molding. It completely made the difference for me. Here's a view of the back panel after I put the hinges on and installed the cam lock. Works very, very well, and I'm very happy with it. And now it was time for me to poke holes where the buttons would go. So this wasn't too bad. I also had to think about how I was going to attach the joysticks. The buttons were very easy, but the joysticks I had to drill some pilot holes inside of the wood and attach the joysticks with the screws on the bottom instead of the top. And the screws that came with the joystick weren't tapping screws, so I had to find some new screws. Luckily I did, but it works. I would have preferred a simpler solution than that, but it works as well as I would want it to work. At this point I was at the home stretch. All I had to do was wire up the plug-in for the back of the arcade machine, which I used some wire strippers on and some wire clamps. I just had to do it as so and pull them to make sure that they worked correctly. It took me a couple tries, but eventually I did get it working, and yeah, the plug works perfectly. It turns the TV on as well as the Raspberry Pi inside, and just it works better than I could have hoped. And that was pretty much it. I just installed the Raspberry Pi inside and configured the controls, and I had a working arcade machine. This was such a fun project. I really suggest that you do research and you try this out for yourself if you have the resources for it. It's a very fun project to do, and the final product is just even more fun. Thank you for watching, and I will hopefully release more videos soon.